question for both of you, beginning with Mayor Brown. How do you feel about Measure 2? And what does voting against Measure 2 mean for renters, if anything?
First of all, I don't think it affects the renters at all, because if owners don't pay property tax, they're not going to pass that on. It's just economics. And the city government doesn't determine rent. The private sector determines rent. And I think if Measure 2, sadly, if it passes, it takes local control away from our local government, and then every 2 years we go to Bismarck with our handout, and they'll have to prioritize their resources with our request, and you have to go to the legislature every 2 years. So I think it's be very damning to our form of government. And I like to have local accountability, local responsibility, local control. And as a council and a mayor over the last 12 years, we've reduced the mills 32 mills. So, and I didn't know what a mill was when I elected. A mill is when you take the value of the city divided by 1,000. That's a mill. I'm going, what are mills? What are we talking about? How come the mills are going up? Is that bad the mills are going up? Well, it's good your city's growing and they divide it by 1,000. And that's really insightful that you need this many mills to do your fire department, this many mills to do your police department ideally. So it's a good concept. But it's the fact that we need to do it locally. We need to manage it locally.
Councilman, how do you feel about Measure 2, and what does voting against Measure 2 mean for renters, if anything?
I think Measure 2 takes away local control, and it would be really difficult to deal with Measure 2 if it were to pass, but I think we can deal with it if it does pass. For renters voting against it, I think that you'll be able to hold your local government accountable for the decision it makes. Really, if you look at the costs of rent, it's not so much the tax level, because we're not that far off from Fargo, although we may be a little bit higher. What really affects rent is how much supply we have, how many choices people have. Right now, we have a vacancy rate of less than 3%. That means if every single place is full, when I move out from one place and Terry moves in, it'll be only 1 week or just a little over a week between those two time periods. That means you really don't have any choices when you're looking for a place to rent, and that drives the price up. We'd have to cut taxes for most people by over 50% to equal that $100 difference between here and Fargo. So in this case, it's not really taxes, it's trying to increase the amount of housing that we have available in Grand Forks, and that's something the government can help with through planning and zoning. If we set up areas where people can continue to expand the right type of housing for the population growth we have, then rental prices will stabilize or even come down. And that's something that I think is really important to do. And that's something that we do in the Planning and Zoning Committee, in city government, and it's something that the mayor has a position on, and he appoints all the people to. Unfortunately, our current mayor hasn't made it to any meetings since 2007. That's over 60 meetings in a row. And I think that shows that right now we're not interested in having a long-term vision for Grand Forks. We're just acting reactively. And that's something that happens when you have somebody who's doing this job part-time and really need a full-time effort to take care of these issues.
You have 1 minute to rebut if you care to.
I would love to. I appoint or approve 10 of the people on the Planning and Zoning Commission. The Planning and Zoning has never built a house and never lowered rent. And I went to 2 of those meetings, and I said, I had realtors and people who want to do it. I said, you guys do that, because that's not my forte. I'm an OBGYN doctor, and I see my role priorities otherwise. So I don't feel bad about that. I think they're doing a great job. I think I have people appointed that represent me and do a good job, so I stand by what we've done.
Thank you. I've spent in the last 2 years, and even before, I spent a lot of time studying cities across the nation. I visited with leaders from all over, even overseas. I spent time studying how they do their planning, their zoning, and how they are able to affect things like rent prices, and we can have an effect on it. If we're not opening up the right areas, if we're not encouraging the right kind of development, then we're going to see prices go up. And if we correct those things, if we have a long-term strategic vision that puts us in the right trajectory to reach a place where we're not at such low vacancy rates, where there's just no choices for people, we can do a much better job. The government can do something about that, and really what it is it's got to get out of the way, and it's got to lead to some extent. You can't stop people from building good housing, and you've got to lead people in building the right kind of housing if that's not happening. And right now we're doing neither. I think it's important that we start doing that as soon as we can, and that's what I will do collectively.
Councilman.